In today's video, we have some updated NHL trade rumors focusing on three teams, which would be the Detroit Red Wings, LA Kings, and Ottawa Senators. We have lots of injury updates as well as an announcement from the NHL on next year's Global Series. We'll jump into all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back here to Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of news updates to cover here today, and I want to get started first of all with some injury updates to some key players for a few teams around the NHL. I want to get started first of all with the St. Louis Blues and forward Alex Steen, who's going to be out for approximately 4 weeks with a high ankle sprain. Of course, this comes right after they traded Robbie Fabry. So between Fabry and Steen now both off the roster. Of course, they did acquire Jacob Delarose from Detroit in return, but I guess we'll see how much of a role he's given, although I can mostly see him likely playing in their American Hockey League affiliate. But Steen had been playing a pretty solid role for them under bottom six. He's really adopted a different role with the team really since last year's resurrection and deep playoff run, and then of course into this year as well, so that's going to be a big blow to them. We also got some bad news on Flyers defensive prospect Samuel Morett, who's going to be out for an extended period of time. Now, of course, in the past he had a torn ACL in one of his knees and was out for a better part of a season plus, and now he's re-injured the same knee, torn ACL, same everything all over again, so he's going to be out for the rest of this year, possibly even part of next year as well, depending on how long the rehab takes. And really, it's not really common you see guys come back from re-injuring that same type of thing 2 times. It's not going to be an easy task for him to get back to the NHL once he recovers from this, but I'm sure he'll give it his best and give it his all and see how things go. But it's certainly a big blow for a young defensive prospect in the Flyers organization. Now, of course, yesterday we talked about some players being on waivers. A couple guys from the Leafs, Martin Morin and Nick Petan, as well as Thomas Yurko from the Edmonton Oilers. We did get confirmation just a short time ago that all 3 of them did actually end up clearing, so we'll likely see some or all end up being assigned to their American Hockey League affiliates. I know the Leafs have already assigned Nick Petan down to the Marlies. I'm not sure about the other 2, if they're going to be assigned right away or not. I guess we'll wait and see, but either way, all 3 have cleared, and as of right now, we don't have any new players on waivers, but I would suspect probably in the next 24 hours, there likely will be more. It just really boils down to the return of Zach Hyman with the Maple Leafs, if it's going to be this weekend or push back into next week. Once he's ready, they will have to move another player off the roster. We'll have to wait and see who that's going to be. Quick update on Taylor Hall and the New Jersey Devils. Of course, his agent Darren Ferris and Ray Shero apparently did have a meeting here over the past couple of days, but there really was no further updates. Everything's still kind of status quo. Early meetings, early contract talks, so no progress really to be reported on, but there was reports that a meeting was going to be taking place, and it has. I guess we'll wait and see if any more news from the Taylor Hall camp comes out here anytime soon, but there's certainly lots of teams watching that situation very, very closely to see if the Devils might not be able to get him signed and if he is going to be traded, because that certainly would be, a big blockbuster move by a team to be able to acquire a guy like Hall heading into the NHL playoffs later into the season. There's some people that believe he very well could be traded and then possibly end up, going on a different team yet again as a free agent in the summer. So I guess we'll wait and see for further updates in the Hall situation with New Jersey. And of course, the NHL is over in Sweden right now for their Global Series, and Gary Bettman did make some announcements today regarding next year's plans for the NHL Global Series to continue. There will be some games held in Helsinki, Finland, as well as in Prague, Czech Republic. The Colorado Avalanche and the Columbus Blue Jackets will be squaring off in Finland. The Boston Bruins and the Nashville Predators playing over in Prague and the Czech Republic. So those will be the teams traveling over to Europe for the NHL Global Series next year. There was some comments regarding the Olympics, but basically nothing positive, saying that it's really difficult and disruptive for the NHL to shut down their season for a few weeks to attend, as well as some other issues. So we really don't have any further clarification or updates if the NHL will be attending the next Olympics. I know it's something the players would like to see, but the league is still against it for a variety of reasons. So as they continue to negotiate through the NHL CBA to try to extend those talks and extend the agreement that's in place, we might get some further updates here as we head later into the season. Hopefully we'll get some clarity on their future plans. Now, regarding the updated NHL trade rumors, I want to get started with the Detroit Red Wings, who are obviously having a really bad season. Of course, many believe Steve Yzerman is going to be following a similar approach to what they called the Shannon Plan in Toronto, basically where Yzerman is going to strip things down and really continue to build from the draft upwards here and really get this team back on track. Of course, they've had a lot of pretty decent looking prospects that enter the organization over the past couple of years. But one player that actually was a bit of a surprise, NBC Sports analyst Pierre McGuire has commented recently that he wouldn't be surprised if Yzerman actually traded 2018 first rounder Philip Zadina. Now, Zadina, of course, was a player who kind of fell down in the draft a little bit and arrived in Ken Holland's lap when he was GM at that draft for the Red Wings, and basically felt like he couldn't pass up the opportunity to select the winger from the Halifax Mooseheads. Of course, he has since struggled to find consistency in his game at the pro level ever since. I mean, he's mostly played in their American Hockey League team in Grand Rapids. Zadina did get a call up later into last season, get a brief amount of NHL action, but I guess he's had trouble finding consistency in his game in the American Hockey League level. And Pierre McGuire was saying his play away from the puck and his effort level and compete level just doesn't seem to be quite where it needs to be to get any kind of regular NHL action. So he would not be surprised if Yzerman dangled him to try to acquire some other assets for the team. But at the same time, he's still really young in his pro career. Personally, I think that might be a little bit premature. I can't imagine they're ready to give up on a 2018 high selection like Zadina already, but I guess it would depend on what it could bring back for other assets. So I guess we will wait to be seen here. But there's still more talk around forward Andreas Athanasiou as well. Obviously, he's been having a difficult time throughout the beginning of this season. He's a proven guy. He's got lots of speed, can score, but he seems to be very streaky in his production, and right now he needs a new contract after this year. We all know the Red Wings and his camp has certainly had difficult negotiations in the past, so very well might be an option for Steve Yzerman to bring back some different assets to the organization. Really, I don't think there's a lot of players on that roster that's untouchable. I can't imagine they'd want to trade Dylan Larkin. Pretty sure they'd want to keep Anthony Mantha, but a lot of other players likely would be, considered trade bait if the right deal came along. I do expect Yzerman to be making a lot of moves with the Red Wings throughout this year and into next offseason to really strip things down and start building here from the ground up. Now, speaking of teams that need to go through a rebuild, let's jump over and take a look at the Los Angeles Kings, who've been on an Eastern Canadian tour with a string of games here lately. Of course, it's been revealed lately that basically anybody not named Drew Doughty or Anze Kopitar on that Kings roster is available for trade. There's obviously a few players garnering more attention than others, including winger Tyler Toffoli and defenseman Alec Martinez being the main two. I don't think it's any secret that the Kings would love to get a fresh start for Jonathan Quick to move him along, but it's going to be tough to do given his contract and the fact that he hasn't played well really this year or last. That's not going to be an easy move, where the other two contracts certainly more reasonable to trade for sure, with Toffoli being a pending unrestricted free agent and Martinez only having one more year on his deal at $4 million. Now, of course, the latest Kings game was against the Ottawa Senators, where they ended up losing in overtime. In that game, Toffoli was featured on the top line and had the most ice time he's had in some time. Many kind of wondered if that might have been a case of the Kings kind of showcasing him, possibly even to the Senators. It's been known that GM Pierre Dorion of the Senators has been doing some scouting recently. He's been catching some games on the West Coast, including a few Los Angeles Kings games. So there was some talk and rumors that maybe he was taking a look at a player like Toffoli, depending on what the asking price is. It could be another case of guys like Nemestikov and Duclair and other players that they've certainly picked up for a decent price tag, can ride out the rest of that contract on a trial basis to see how things go, determine if they want to sign them beyond the current season or let them head into free agency. Obviously, it's going to really boil down to the asking price. They're not going to give up a lot for a struggling player in order to just try them out for a handful of games. So obviously they're a lot likely heading towards the playoffs. So I guess we will see how things go there. But Toffoli is certainly a player to keep your eye on, as I mentioned before. Of course, in Alec Martinez's case, there's been some link to the Montreal Canadiens in the past. But no secret they've been exploring the idea of adding a veteran left shot defenseman. So there's certainly a possibility to keep your eye on. But it is no secret that the LA Kings are likely going to be selling off a lot of assets here as we go forward. I know Dennis Bernstein of the fourthperiod.com, his recent article over the past day or so, it also indicates that he feels once the Kings get to pass that 20 game mark, that sell-off likely could start early, and that they necessarily won't wait for the trade deadline to selling off some of these assets. I mean, they have some other veterans as well, like Kyle Clifford and Trevor Lewis, who certainly could possibly be attracted to other teams looking to add some veteran leadership and veteran depth players for the playoff run. And it wouldn't be shocking to see maybe a team like the Maple Leafs inquire about Kyle Clifford. There is some history between Kyle Clifford and Kyle Dubas. Before Kyle Dubas' days in the NHL as a GM, he was originally a player agent, and Kyle Clifford was actually his first client. So they do have a history there, and he is the type of player who has the pedigree of winning a Stanley Cup. He provides that type of gritty play that the Leafs are missing right now. So it would not be shocking to see the Leafs maybe inquire about possibly picking him up for the remainder of his contract, because he is a pending UFA here as well. But I do expect the Kings to be making many moves and to sell off to start here relatively soon. And of course, I just mentioned the possibility of the Senators looking at Tyler Toffoli for the LA Kings. So another player on Ottawa that many are keeping an eye on, as well as Jean-Gabriel Pageau, who is a pending unrestricted free agent as well. Is having a pretty solid year. Plays in all situations, power play, penalty kill. Right now getting an elevated role due to their lack of depth and all the youngsters on their team. Obviously, they don't have a ton of longer term contracts. They don't have a lot of high profile players that are getting big ice time. So his role has been elevated and he's been excelling, especially on a contract year. And Frank Saravelli of TSN has commented that he's talked to some NHL GMs from around the league, and they feel that if they were to look to trade him, that they might be able to acquire a first round pick and a prospect. That seems like a little bit of a steep price for me. I mean, personally, I love his play. If you follow this channel, you understand that I am a Senators fan at heart, and Pageau is one of my more favorite players, and I think he's a great player. Pageau is the type of player, brings a lot of energy, can play in all situations, and he's really reliable, good, solid 200-foot player. But personally, I think that might be a little bit steep of an asking price for somebody, who's got a career high of like 40, 45 points. But as much as I like the player, if that offer was on the table for a first-round pick and a prospect, I think that Dorian would be crazy to not consider that and even take the deal, depending on who's offering it here. Obviously, the first-round pick, depending on what team it is, will differ on where they likely pick in the draft come June. They already have 2 first-round selections. Of course, they have their own, which is likely going to be a fairly decent pick. And they also have the first-round pick of the Sharks. So depending on how things goes for them, if they don't get things turned around too great and they do miss the playoffs, they could have 2 picks in the lottery already. So if they get a third one, that would certainly really accelerate things with this rebuild, because the 2020 draft is looking especially deep. So Pageau is certainly a player to keep our eyes on. Right now, there's been no word of extension talks on a new contract. So obviously, I do think he's their good age, though, that he would make sense for the Sens to keep him around. But I guess we'll see if they decide to extend him or trade him. Either way, it's certainly an interesting player to keep our eye on here as the season goes forth. So that is all your latest news updates for today. Of course, as always, we'll know your thoughts and opinions and everything discussed down in the comment section. Let me know what you think, and we'll continue the conversation. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.